Yo, this is Millennial Sport Talk episode 13. And, this is going to be a rapid reaction. But first, we got to tackle, there's been a lot of activity going on outside of just football. We had the Antonio Brown tweet, we had the Vontae Davis retirement at halftime. We have a trade. Josh Gordon is now a member of the Patriots. And I mean, it seems like, we had a lot of historical figures thrown. We had another tie in the NFL. We can talk about that, as well as Patrick Mahomes uh, throwing for 6 touchdowns, 10 total touchdowns. Fitz Magic also throwing crazy touchdown passes. So there's a lot of things to talk about. We're going to try to tackle them all here and then give you some power rankings to finish up the show. So looks like we're going to have an action-packed show today. These gloves, okay, these gloves are crazy. If you ever seen those new gloves these NFL players have, it's unfair. It's not even comparable to what people had to wear. Now, obviously, there's back in the 70s and 60s and a little bit in the 80s, people allegedly used stickum, but these are pretty damn close to stickum when you have these gloves on, and these gloves are allowing us to see the Odell Beckham catch. We saw a catch by a Jaguars receiver, some no-name guy. This James Conner, for crying out loud, who couldn't catch a damn cold last year in the first beginning of the season. He's catching these passes now wearing these gloves. So while they're fantastic to see, let's just keep in mind that these players were not making these catches if they don't have these gloves on. They're not making these catches. And if it's not September weather, they're not making these catches. When we get into December and January football, they're not going to be making these catches. I mean, the very best, I expect them to be able to, but these one-handed snags behind the back, I don't expect to see that going. Talk about what you guys really want to talk about. We really want to talk about Josh Gordon getting traded to the New England Patriots for a fifth rounder. Like, that's just Brown's going to Brown, right? And it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, this is very, very skeptical business because the Browns obviously were going to release him. And then there's a report that 10 different teams, 10 teams are inquiring about Gordon immediately. Now, if somebody's immediately inquiring about him because they want to nab a player before he gets off the waivers, the question is, you're willing to give something up for him, something valuable, if you're that desperate for a guy like Gordon. Now, I agree that I even made a tweet about it. I would not have given up more than a sixth-round pick for Josh Gordon. And that's what apparently the New England Patriots were offering, but they didn't have a sixth-round pick. So they did one better and gave them a fifth-round pick. But my thing is, if you're the Browns, are you that dumb that you're not going to shop around and say, hey, guys, anybody else willing to give up a fifth-round pick? Because we know the New England Patriots are going to pick somewhere between 27 and 32. If the 49ers, we know they were showing interest with the Chicago Bears. I mean, there's a ton of different teams that were showing interest. They said 10. We didn't hear all 10, but I'm sure most of those 10 are not very good teams, or at least they're going to finish higher pick than the Patriots. Why not entertain those offers, especially after they came out and specifically said they wanted to trade Josh Gordon to the NFC? This reminds me of the Patriots' other business they had with the San Francisco 49ers when they had Jimmy Garoppolo. And what did the Jimmy Garoppolo go to? He went to Kyle Shanahan's team, who's Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, who blew the 28-3 lead, magically blew that lead against the New England Patriots. So the Patriots give him Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo for a second-round pick when we knew the Browns wanted Jimmy Garoppolo and they were willing to offer a first-round pick. So I don't know. I mean, this was a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. And now the Browns, who just gave the Patriots Danny Shelton and received Jamie Collins. I guess, I don't know, Jamie Collins might have been a free agent pickup. I know Danny Shelton was traded and Corey Coleman was traded to the Patriots. Now they're trading Josh Gordon to the Patriots for a fifth-round pick. Doesn't make any sense to me, but me personally, I'm willing to bet that Josh Gordon will not finish the season as a Patriot. You really want to talk about a guy who is not a professional at all, and he's trying to go to the ultimate professionalism of football, which is the New England Patriots, in the sense that they don't care. They're not going to pay you. I mean, Gronk and Brady, those are probably the two exceptions. And Gronk really could have got paid a lot more if he went elsewhere. Both of those guys could have. So he's going to a team that is very, very punctual, very professional, very much everything that Josh Gordon is not. And you expect him to just jump in with no training camp and learn this playbook. He just skipped training camp to focus on his rehabilitation. And now you expect him to learn one of the more complex offices in the NFL, be prompt and paying attention in these meetings and running the right routes and knowing every single concept and audible. I don't think this is going to work out. And they don't, with all that stress, because keep in mind, there's stress and there's pressure when you have to win, because in New England you have to win, and he's going to have to win his job. They're not going to give it to him. You think he's going to stay off the weed? You think he's going to stay off the weed? Nah, man, nah. He's going to smoke that joint. He's going to smoke that bowl. And the thing is, if the NFL has any shred of integrity, they would test Josh Gordon every single week after the report, what the Cleveland Browns said, how he showed up when he said his hamstring injury was going to keep him out of this week's matchup. So, yeah, it's definitely a surprising move that shook the NFL world. But hey, Josh Gordon is now a New England Patriot. Staying into the AFC East, we just talked about the Patriots transaction. How about those Bills? Vontae Davis, how bad is it? How bad is it that you're at halftime? You're like, dog, I really don't want to play for this team no more. Like, dude really reflected. It was like Alonzo Mourning just saying, damn, we suck. But I could retire right now. I really could. And he did it. He retires. Hey, coach. Not even just like if it was me, I'm like, if I really think about retiring, I'm like, yo, coach, I can't play. I can't come out. I just don't want to do it no more. But I don't want to embarrass the franchise, Let me just sit me on the bench. I got an injury, and I'll retire at the end of the game. Just be upfront, Because if you don't want to go out there and you talk to the coach, obviously he's going to be pissed, but he'll understand that you're thinking about more than yourself. You're thinking about other people, the team. This man said, F that. F that. I'm done. Y'all tell everybody I'm retired. I want everybody to know I retired. I'm going to call up my agent right now, tell him I'm retired, put out a statement before the game's over. I'm done. It's over. I quit. Y'all have fun. It ain't worth it to me to come out and get this game check. That's just sad. And I mean, Vontae Davis, some people say good for you, man. I say shame on you, Vontae Davis. Shame on you, Vontae Davis, that you couldn't go through 2 weeks of the NFL season before you quit on your brothers. And I'm a former player. All these people, they talk about, this and that. But if you don't play the game, if you don't play any sport, you never played any sport, I understand it's get your money. It's about you as a business. But at the same time, your whole life, it wasn't about the business. For your whole life, you've been fighting alongside, I consider the temporary brothers, even for lifetime brothers when you're good. When you suck, sometimes they are lifetime brothers. But the fact of the matter is that you quit on them in the middle of a game. You never loved football to begin with. And you should be shamed. Shame on you, Vontae Davis. All right, moving along. Now we got Antonio Brown. And obviously, he had a frustrating game. Who wasn't? Ben was hitting everybody else. And I'm like, okay, we got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, I wasn't that excited because I don't know if you guys noticed, I didn't tweet much during the game. I was KO'd. I was I was done. But I saw the first half, and I saw half of the fourth quarter, and I saw like the first 2 drives of the third quarter. And basically, AB, every time not every time, he hit him a couple times, but every time AB was open for a big play, Ben would just completely miss him. Like, it wouldn't even be close. And I'm sitting there like, dang, this something ain't right. And it was dirt balls. It was like he expected him to go to the flat, and AB went to the post. Ben was anticipating a defender, and AB just kept his route because he had a step on him. But yeah, something was off, and that frustration built up. I saw it in the first half. Obviously, we came back and we had a tied ball game, and then obviously we ultimately lost the game. And of course, some fan, I guess, got under his skin and said something stupid. Let's just be honest, the fan was an idiot. This guy Ray Filipino, I don't know what the hell his name is. Screw you, Ray. You're an idiot. You know this guy should be, I won't say banned off of Twitter, but if I was following him, I would unfollow him for that comment. And AB let it get to him, and he said, "Trade me, then let's see what happens." And everybody, oh no, she said trade him. He's just frustrated. He's just mad. He's just like, dude, man, what are you talking about? Okay, if I'm gonna go to another team, I think it was worth it in a sense, but obviously, people with the media, they're gonna overblow it because it's always fun to have a story, and if you can get bait like that, you're gonna take the bait. That's what it is. That is low hanging fruit for a media analyst, anybody that wants to get tweets up. Oh, Antonio Brown wants a trade. But we all know that's not the case. Antonio Brown's getting paid. He's got money. He's the face of Madden, which Madden curse. Let's just talk about it for a little bit. But anyways, he's the face of the franchise more than Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers would be more. I mean, that's a good question. How about that? If the Steelers had to trade somebody, are you going to trade AB or are you going to trade Ben Roethlisberger? Because right now, you look at these other quarterbacks in the NFL, and they're playing just as well, if not better than Big Ben. So, and they got a lot more years ahead of them. So I can get into that, but I mean, ultimately, I do blame some of this tension in the locker room on Ben Roethlisberger. People were talking about how the Steelers were not, the locker room was not like this when Big Ben first came into, the NFL. And that's because the leaders of that team were stern, they were responsible, and they didn't make excuses. They didn't talk about retiring early. Oh, maybe I don't have it. Ben is a diva. He always has been a diva, and his diva personality has rubbed off on Ben. Has rubbed off on Le'Veon Bell and rubbed off on Antonio Brown. We see these two divas, and Martavis Bryant. He thought he deserved more than what he even is worth to any other team, and now he got cut and he came back. So he had a little piece of that divaness, and I just hope it doesn't leak into James Conner and Juju. Juju looks like he might be the next diva. They always start cute and cuddly when they're first, second year, third year. Let them get to the end of near that contract. He's gonna think, oh, I can make X amount of money, and Pittsburgh offers him this. So I'm not getting too excited about Juju's future with Pittsburgh just yet. But this AB tweet thing, it's nothing. It's a whole lot of nothing. And I just want to talk about some of the weekend games. So obviously, a lot of heads were turned in Pittsburgh when Kansas City looked like they were going to rout the Steelers. I mean, they scored in their first three drives, 21-0. And I was shocked. I mean, it felt like Jacksonville again. I'm very disappointed in the home fans. They they're just spoiled. That's what it comes down to. They're spoiled, and I don't think they're very appreciative of the team. And you can't be the best all the time. And obviously, we thought that we were Super Bowl contenders, and I think this game proves that they're not. I mean, I always kind of felt that way in the back of my head from the beginning of the season. Really, ever since Ryan Shazier got once Ryan Shazier basically had a career-ending injury, I'm thinking like that's it. Ryan Shazier was the single best player we had on defense. And the fact that we lost him and got nothing in return, and we still have to pay his salary, and Ben's windows closing, I mean, the only way of hope we have is if Mason Rudolph can turn into a Patrick Mahomes, where we'll let him sit this season, he learns from Ben, and then next season, I mean, I can see Ben's decline right now. I see it. It's there. I mean, he's still able to make plays, and we put up 37 points. But his decline is in some of his consistency of his how he's going through his progressions. He still forces footballs that he shouldn't do. He's still not throwing crisp passes to AB. I mean, it's like at this stage, I don't really see Brady making the mistakes that Ben makes. I don't see Rodgers. I don't see Brees. And these are the guys I put Ben up there with. He's somewhere in between Eli Manning and I wouldn't go so far as say like Matt. He's still better than Matt Ryan, but the decline is definitely there. His skills are diminishing, and I think as the season goes on, we'll see that more prevalent. So, yeah, without a stout defense, I mean, you look at the best teams that in my power rankings, all these teams have good defenses, and there's no improvement that we can see. We're going to have to change defensive coordinators again this year. All of this change and flux, it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to contend for a Super Bowl. And I would just be happy if they make the playoffs at this point. Realistically, it might almost be better if they just don't make the playoffs and they go and get a top 10 pick and let Bell walk, somehow convince AB to stay, and have Mason Rudolph let Ben go, get a huge salary cap increase when you finally let go of Shazier and Bell and Ben, and then you invest in that defense. And if you do your cards right, obviously you missed out on the Khalil Mack. If you could have grabbed the Khalil Mack and grabbed the Earl Thomas with the money that you're paying Ben and Bell and Shazier, now you're talking about a defense that I think can support a James Conner, Juju, AB, and with the Mason Rudolph, if he can play something like Patrick Mahomes or something like what we see out of these younger quarterbacks, um, Carson Wentz, then yeah, definitely they could be Super Bowl contenders with Joe Hayden, and they got Tuitt, Hayward. The youth is on the defense right now, and that's where they have to start investing because Ben is not good enough to win without a defense. He never has been good enough to win without a defense. And so that's the priority has to be build up the defense and figure out quarterback play later. Maybe Ben will take a paycheck. I would love to keep Ben if he takes his paycheck down to $15 million a year. That's not bad at all. 15 is great. Take 10 off. Let us invest in something else, and then we can let Shazier, that's $8 million go, and then Bell, that's another 14. That's still over $30 million. We can now invest in the defense. So right now, Steelers are not Super Bowl contenders. They can turn the season around. It's a 2-week season at this point. All you have to do is you beat the Buccaneers at Monday night, which is a very tough game. Don't get me wrong. It's very tough, but it's doable. Very doable. And then you beat the Ravens at home. Now you're 2-1-1. At 2-1-1, you're at least second in division and more than likely a half game behind the Bengals. I do not see the Bengals beating Carolina at Carolina and then turn around and going at Atlanta and beating the Falcons in their dome. So Bengals could easily drop the 2-2, 3-1 at best, and the Steelers would be a half game behind. So by no means is the division and playoffs out of the case. Out of the not an option. But they have to win these next two games. They win these next two games, and it's a good reset. But we still got that 8-game murderous row coming up, and it's going to be all hands on deck. So we'll see what they can do. Keith Butler, you're coaching for your job at this point. That's who I'm talking to. Keith Butler, if you don't get better than the 16th ranked defense this year, you're out of here. You're gone. That's just it. So we'll see. Let's talk about some other teams, though. Now that we talk about the Steelers, let's talk about the team that I do think is the best team in the NFL, and that's the Los Angeles Rams. The LA Rams are for real. Like, when I say for real, I don't see them losing more than 3 games. Possibly, they could go 15-1 this year. They have not allowed their opponents to cross the 50, but for like 3 to 5 plays in the last 6 quarters. Yes, it's the Arizona Cardinals and the Oakland Raiders they played against, but that's ridiculous. Do you know how good of a defense it takes not to allow the opponent to cross the 50? That's special teams and defense, and they're the full package, man. I don't see any team. People talk about the Jaguars, who are very, very similar to the Rams, but I like the Rams way better than the Jaguars right now, and I think they have much more talent on the offensive side of football, and they have a better defense to boot. So I like the Rams better. Of the Jaguars, I mean, this team, they just completely surprised me. Um, I will say this, once that news of the weather came up, and I always talk about this, I talk about it in a number of the other episodes, but the Patriots always get lucky in that they don't have to play the Dolphins at the beginning of the season because Brady can't play in heat. And the NFL knows that, and they cut them slack. They cut them a break every year, and they let the Patriots play Miami in December. They always play Miami in December. Think about that. They play in Miami every year, and this was like the hottest game that Brady's ever played in. It's hot in Miami every year. It's hotter than it is in Tampa Bay. It's more humid, and it's hotter in Miami than it is in Tampa. But obviously, oh, not Tampa. It's hotter and it's more humid than it is in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is much more moderate than Miami. And this comes from somebody that lived down there. I drive through there, Jacksonville, all the time, and I have work. I used to have work up there, and so I travel to Tampa and Jacksonville. Tampa's hotter than Jacksonville and more humid. They are known for their lightning storms, but regardless, finally he got to go into Florida in September, and what happened? He loses. They lost the game. And it's not just Brady, it's the whole team. I mean, Pittsburgh did the same thing when they played in Miami, and that was in October. And it was hot. I promise you, it was one of the hottest games I've ever been in. And I was living in Miami at that time. So the fact that the weather was what it was, I said, okay, yeah, they're going to lose. I didn't know what the weather. I didn't even look at the forecast. I was just going by the fact that Fournette's out, Blake Bortles in there. You know, obviously I thought it would be some mistakes, but Blake Bortles played his ass off. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns, 300 something yards. Hey, yeah, you score 30 points against the Patriots, you can win that game, especially with their defense. So, hats off to the Jaguars. I definitely have you guys as second best team, and oh well, that's a little preview. So I guess we'll just go through the power rankings now. I wasn't going to do it, but I might as well go ahead and do it now. So Jacksonville Jaguars, second best team in the NFL right now. Patrick Mahomes. What to make of Patrick Mahomes? Patrick Mahomes, this guy has thrown for 10 touchdowns in his first 2 games, first starts of the season. That's impressive. I mean, that's impressive no matter how you slice it. However, I'm going to throw a little bit of game at you, and I'm going to point out that Andy Reid typically has success with quarterbacks very early on. And I'm not saying the guy's not good, but we've seen this from Andy Reid-led quarterbacks before. And here's the stats. Okay, so here's the deal with Andy Reid, man. This guy's been in the NFL for about 20 years now, and he spent the last 6 years in Kansas City. Before we even get to Philadelphia, I don't even know if I really need to cover Philadelphia, but you can just go back to last year in Kansas City. He started at 5-0 with Alex Smith, averaging 33 points per game. Okay, how did that season end up? 10-6. Knocked out first round of playoffs. Okay, let's go back a little bit further, okay? They actually started the season 9-0. 9-0 back in 2013. The Kansas City Chiefs under new head coach Andy Reid started 9-0 and ultimately finished 11-5, second in the division, knocked out in the wild card playoffs to the Indianapolis Colts. So this is a recurring theme with Andy Reid. He can have hot starts all the time. He does well. I mean, he has a great knack for developing new wrinkles and schemes and taking advantage of the offensive weapons that he has. But ultimately, it comes down to the end of the season, and it's like one or the other. Either they start really bad. We saw one year they started 1-5 or 0-5, and then they went on a crazy run and won. But they never play. He hasn't had a complete season really since his Philly days back in 2004 when he had Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens. You can even go back to the Mike Vick years back in 2010, which is kind of far, it's about 8 years ago now. But in 2010, they came out of a bye week and they won 6 of the next 7 games, averaging 34 points per game in those contests, with Michael Vick just coming, freshly new to Philadelphia from his jail sentence. And it's just one of those things. Andy Reid is a wizard, and he should be respected. And I tip my cap off to him. But I'm thinking and I'm betting that this surgence under Patrick Mahomes is a result of Andy Reid so much more than it is Patrick Mahomes. He will slow down, obviously, and the Kansas City Chiefs will become the Kansas City Chiefs that we know they are, and they'll lose in a wild card again. At best, they'll get to the divisional round, but they're not going to the AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes, definitely add on your fantasy teams. I mean, they definitely got about 3 more games at this pace, I would say, about 5 to 6 games. And yeah, they'll come down to earth about game 7, game 8. What some other teams get some better film on them. Because that's the thing you have to remember. Patrick Mahomes is a new quarterback to the NFL. Nobody has film on this guy. Every year it's the same deal. Quarterbacks, you need film on them. Once you get film on them, you can study it, you can find their weaknesses, you can exploit their weaknesses, and you can take away their strengths. So, Patrick Mahomes, fantastic quarterback, but we're going to have to see 2 years of him before we really judge him to be as great as some people are making him out to be. Last but not least, in the NFL, for the second consecutive week, we have another tie. What is this, football? Football? No, this is American football, and we still have ties, which I'm okay with the ties because I watch soccer, I watch football, and ties, they're necessary because this is a regular season match. A regular season match is not meant to go on for ever. These guys have health. You got to get to the next game. It's already so physical in a game of attrition that the 10-minute quarters, I think it's fine. Obviously, the ties kind of suck, but it is what it is. And teams got to learn how to win in regulation. That's all it's going to be. I think if anything, these other rules they have added with the offense and you can't hit the quarterback, that's way worse than the tie rule. The fact that you can't hit a quarterback and land on top of him is the stupidest piece of crap I've ever heard of. And it really makes the game, it sucks because we're so addicted to football that I can't really threaten I'm not going to watch the game. But it's like, this is not football anymore. This is a new era of some sport that I don't know what it's called because teams should not be able to be punished for simply tackling a guy. That's it. They tackled him. Now I understand hit him in the head, hit him in the knee. I think is still across the line. Like shoot, you can't hit him in the head. You can at least go low on him. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt. It's part of the game. People are gonna get hurt. You cannot prevent injuries. And to punish somebody for a fluke play, it's just silly. It's silly. Now I can understand if it's like an intended, let me bash my helmet against his knee. If you can put some intent into the rule, maybe I'm okay with that. Obviously, that might create more subjectivity. But the simple fact that you tackle a guy and you land on top of him, which everybody, it's bodies on top of bodies. That's football. And you're punishing people for that. Like the roughing the passing call they called in the Green Bay game. And they had a lot of bad calls in that game, a lot of missed field goals in that game. It's hard to depict which team was really better, but obviously with Green Bay playing at home, tying at home is a lot worse than tying on the road. So we'll talk about this more into our power rankings next episode. But for this episode, we're going to call that a wrap because we run out of time. It's already 30 minutes in this episode. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we'll get those NFL power rankings out for you, hot and fresh out the oven. So, all right, peace.